Assalamu alaikum. This is lecture number 32 of Global Business Management. We are going to continue our revision that we started in the last lecture, and we are going to revise the last five chapters. And the first chapter that we are going to see in this lecture today is Global Monetary System. In global monetary system, we had discussed the international monetary system, which refers to the institutional arrangements that countries adopt to govern exchange rate. Okay, and there are different sort of exchange rate system. The first one is floating exchange rate system. Exists when a country allows foreign exchange market to determine the relative value of a currency. Another one is the peg exchange rate system. Exists when a country fixes the value of its currency relative to a reference country, which is normally the USA. Many Gulf states peg their currency to the US dollars. A dirty float exists when a country tries to hold the value of its currency within the range of reference currency, such as the US dollars. This the very famous country is the China, which allows its currency yuan to fluctuate within 3 point ups and down of US dollars. The gold standard refers to the system in which countries peg currencies to gold and guarantee their convertibility. In the 1980s, the most nations followed the gold standards, and they kept like $1 is equal to 23.22 grains of fine gold. The gold par value refers to the amount of currency needed to purchase the 1 ounce of gold. In 1944, representatives of 44 countries met at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to design a new international monetary system that would facilitate post-war economic growth. Under the new agreement, a fixed exchange rate was established. All currencies were fixed to gold, but only US dollar was directly convertible to gold. Devaluation could not be used for competitive purposes. A country could not devalue its currency by more than 10% without the IMF approval and IMF. Okay, in 1944, 44 countries met together. They sat together and they formulated some code of conduct in the international monetary system, and they established a fixed exchange rate system, and they established this thing that all the countries have to fix their currencies with the US. All their currencies were fixed to the gold, but only US dollar was directly convertible to the golds, and these currencies were fixed to the US dollars. And the important thing is countries cannot devalue their currencies more than 10% without the permission of the IMF. And the second contribution of this Bretton Woods this conference was to establishment of the IMF and World Bank Institute. The Bretton Woods system could not work if its keys currency. Okay, there are certain underlying assumptions for the working of the Bretton Woods currency exchange system, the fixed exchange rate. The US dollar was under speculative era. US dollar should be really strong, and the export of US economy should be greater than the US imports. It works well only as long as US inflation rate remained low and US did not run balance of payment deficit. Where balance of payment deficit mean import when import exceeds the imports. A new exchange rate system was because of the failure of this exchange rate and the US dollar, especially in 1970s, because the US government had to spend extra money on the Vietnam War, and they had to, because of the Vietnam War, the economic situation within the country was worse, and they had to create a job. In order to create the job and to sponsor the war expenses, they just printed the money without the backup of the any gold resources or any other resources. And because of this thing, the value of US dollar was considered it should go down. Like especially in the Germany, US dollar was under the serious speculative attack that the value of US dollar should be devalued. And because in Germany they were speculating that the US and the exchange rate between the German currency and the US dollar, the US dollar should be devalued as compared to the German one. And because of this speculative attack, later on the US government had to devalue their currency. But the important thing is, because of the failure, that the German government had allowed their currency to float freely, and same happened in the France, because the government couldn't control the German currency to a specific rate related to US dollars. And because of these things, that other currencies which are associated with the US dollar, they couldn't control the exchange rate with the US. They acknowledge the weakness of the US dollars, and then in 1976 they met again in Jamaica, and they formulated the new exchange rate system was established. The rules that were agreed on then were still in place today. Under the Jamaican agreement, floating rate were declared acceptable. Gold was abandoned as a reserve asset. Total annual IMF quotas, the amount member countries contribute to IMF, were increased from 41 US billion to 300 US billion. In Jamaican conference, they were agreed to establish that floating exchange rate system is totally acceptable. And second thing was, gold was abandoned as a reserve currency. And the third thing is, the donation of the IMF member countries were increased from the 41 billion to 300 billion US dollars. Now the question arises, which one is better, the fixed exchange rate or the floating exchange rate? Both of them have their positive elements. The monetary policy autonomy. Removing the obligation to maintain exchange rate parity restored monetary control to a government. In floating exchange rate, it gives the monetary policy autonomy. Now countries don't need to fix their exchange rate with the US dollars, and it gives the freedom to the government to increase the rate. To freely they allow the market to determine the exchange rate. The second benefit of the floating exchange rate is to automatic trade balance adjust. Because if the exchange rate is increase or decrease, it automatically adjusts the trade balance. But on the other hand, fixed exchange rate system has also some positive aspects. The first one is provides monetary disciplines, ensures that government do not expand their money supplies at inflationary rates. And second one is minimizes speculation. In floating exchange rate, there is high tendency that speculators are going to use the speculate and hostile speculations, and they are going to, because of this speculative attacks, the value of the currency can go down. And but on the other hand, in fixed exchange rate, the currency is considered more stable, and the effect of speculation is low, and the reduced uncertainty. Because the speculation effect is low, of course uncertainty is also low. A country follow a pegged exchange rate system pegs the value of its currency to another major currency. Countries using a currency board commit to converting their domestic currency on demand into another currency at a fixed exchange rate. There are three main types of financial crises which IMF tackles: the currency crisis, the banking crisis, and foreign debt. As we know that because of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, two international institutions were established, the IMF and the World Bank. IMF were more concerned with these sort of crises for monetary systems, and the World Bank was established in order to provide the loans to the member countries for the development purposes. IMF deals with the currency crisis, the banking crisis, and foreign debt crisis. What is currency crisis? It occurs when a speculative attack on exchange value of a currency results in a sharp depreciation in the value of the currency, or forces authorities to expend large volume of international currency reserves and sharply increase interest rate in order to defend the prevailing exchange rate. Okay. Currency crisis occurs when a speculative attack happens, and the speculative attack occurs to devalue the currency, and it forces it. But in return, what happens? It forces government to devalue the currency, and forces authorities to expend the large volume of international currency reserve. I mean, there are two things. I mean, the first one is government can do. They can increase the level of foreign currency reserves to keep the currency rate at the similar point, despite these attacks, speculative attacks. Second thing the government can do, that they can increase the interest rate. By increasing the interest rate, they are in fact attracting the investors, and people are going to the supply of domestic currency will be low, and because the government is going to keep that money with them, and on the other hand, supply of or inward FDI is going to come in the country. I mean, foreign currency is going to increase and the local currency is going to decrease because of increase of interest rates. And the first thing, like we discussed, that what they can do, they can increase the volume of international currency reserves. These are the two responsive strategies a country regulators can do in response of the speculative attacks. In terms of banking crisis, when you talk about the banking crisis, a situation in which a loss of confidence in the banking systems lead to a run on the banks, and individual and companies withdraw their deposit. Banking crisis refers again when people lose their confidence from the banks, and people and the company were starting to withdraw their money from the banks. And we know that the banks are only survive on the reserve money that they keep, and they are just playing as an intermediary. They take the money from the people or from the investors or from the companies, and lend them on the high interest rate to the borrowers. Foreign debt crisis is a situation in which a country cannot service its foreign debt obligations, whether private sector or the government debt. These mean when the government is not in a position to pay back their money, pay back their debts. These debts can be the foreign debts or the local government debts. There are certain very famous financial crises. The first one is the Mexican currency crisis in 1995, was a result of high Mexican debts and the peg exchange rate that did not allow for a natural adjustments of the prices. To keep Mexico from defaulting on its debt, IMF created a 50 billion aid package. Similarly, in mid-1997, several key Thai financial institutions were on the verge of default because of speculations against the Thai baht. Thailand abandoned the Thai baht peg and allowed the currency to float free. IMF loan packages required tight macroeconomic and monetary policy. We know that when the IMF lend money to the country, they ask them to take severe monetary actions to cut the expenditures and to raise the money. However, critics worry These critics raise the three major points for the IMF loans, and they say that because of these three issues, the IMF loan is not working according to its objectives. The first one is the one-size-fits-all approach to macroeconomic policies inappropriate for many countries. IMF have similar policies for all the countries. Despite they are not considering the political or other or size of the country or the legal situation of the country, and they are lending to the countries with the similar terms and conditions. The second one is IMF is exacerbating moral hazard. When people behave recklessly because they know they will be saved if things go wrong, people know that the countries, the rulers of those countries, they know that when they are going to be near on default, they will default, the IMF will come and they are going to rescue, they are going to get money. This is the second thing, they are encouraging the moral hazard thing. The IMF has become too powerful for an institution without any real mechanism for accountability. The third thing is the money that they are lending to the countries is IMF as an institution is getting so strong that it's controlling the whole world. The countries who are borrowing from the IMF, they are sort of they are controlled by IMF. IMF is controlled by USA, and because of this so powerful, the USA and is using the IMF as an instrument, and indirectly USA is controlling those economies through those loan packages. Now, under these circumstances, there are something currency management. Firms manager need to know business strategy, how they are going to develop a strategy under these circumstances, and the business government relationship. These three things that the international manager should be aware of when they are conducting a business in the international market. Then we had discussed the chapter international global strategy. Under the global strategy refers to the actions that the manager take to attain the goals of the firm, and profitability. And under the global strategy, we had discussed the two elements, the profitability and the profit growth. Profitability can be defined as the rate of return on the investment, and the profit growth is a percentage increase over the years. Expanding internationally can boost profitability. When the firm enter in the international market, they can get both profitability and the profit growth. It is measured by a firm. By the difference between the price. The profitability is measured in terms of, as we know, the price and the cost. Difference between the price and cost is the profitability. Higher the value customer place on a firm's product, the higher the price the firm can charge on those products, and the greater the profitability of the firm. If the value of the product is higher for customers, if the customer places higher value for those products, then companies are in a position to charge higher prices. If customers are not placing higher value to those products, companies cannot. If the customers are not placing higher value to certain products, and companies charge high, they will stop buying those products. And of course, it ultimately affects on the profitability and the profit growth. Profits can be increased by, there are several ways to increase the profit. The first one is by adding value to the product so that customers are willing to pay more for it. This is called a differentiation strategy. And differentiation strategy is the lowering the cost, which is a low cost strategy. There are two ways how the firms can add the value to the product. The first one is a differentiation strategy. The second one is low cost strategy. Differentiation strategy means to differentiate your product from the existing other products, and the low cost strategy means despite that you have a similar product compared to your competitors' firm's products, but you can reduce the cost. Michael Porter argues that superior profitability goes to firms that create superior value by lowering the cost structure of the business and or differentiating the product so that a premium price can be charged. Okay, Michael Porter argues that these two strategies are really important, and firms can get the competitive advantage by differentiating the product and or lowering the cost. If they can combine both these facets, then that's a higher competitive advantage for the firm. To maximize long-run return on invested capitals, to increase the return on investment, firms pick a viable position on the efficiency frontier. This is the one way. Second way, configure internal operations to support that position, have the right organizational structure in place to execute the strategy. Now we are talking about to return a higher return on investment. Firm should have a right, efficient, viable position and configure internal operation according to that strategy, and the organizational structure should be aligned with that strategy as well. Okay, value creation activities can be categorized as primary activities like R&D, production, marketing and sales and customer service, or support activities like information system, logistics, human resource. Value creation activities mean firms can create the value by directly creating the value or reducing the cost to create the value. These are the two ways through which firm can add value to the product. A firm can add value to the product by through R&D or some production and marketing and sales and customer. These are the primary activities through which they are going to add the value. But the support activities mean information system. If information system is really efficient or interlinked with all these departments, of course the R&D, the production, marketing through the information system, the R&D department, the marketing department is going to get the data of the customers, and they know what's required in the market and what sort of information, what sort of customer, the demand, the quality of traits that the customer is demanding in the market. And this information will be transmitted to the R&D, and then this the same information the output of the R&D will be transmitted to the production department. Similarly, the logistics, the human resource, these are the things. The human resource is really efficient and the high skilled people are available in all these departments. The supporting activities can increase the value of the product as well. International firms can expand the market for their domestic product offering by selling those products in international markets. Okay, realize location economies by dispersing individual value creation activities in location around the globe where they. Okay, the first one is they can expand the domestic market products by selling in the international market. Second one is they can realize the location economies. They can choose some locations by dispersing individual value creation activities to they can choose some locations, some market where they can perform those value creation activities most efficiently. For instance, that a firm has value creation activities lies in the R&D, then firm can see this thing in which market they can add value through R&D most efficiently. Might be firm, if the core skill of the firm is engineering, they can move to the South Korea or China. They have the more engineering skills. And if we come to the next point, realize greater cost economies from experience effect by serving an expanded global market from a central location thereby. Okay, the second thing is they can increase the value by having a centralized production and producing because if the cost of production, the fixed cost of production is higher, the firms can have a centralized production in one market and expand their business or export their business to the neighboring markets from that central point. Earn a greater return by leveraging any valuable skill developed in foreign operations and transferring them to other entities within the firm's global level. One another aspect that firm can gain from this sort of international business is the valuable skills that they learn from the international activities, irrespective of from where they are going to get, from which subsidiary, from which market they are going to get those valuable skills. They have to learn that skill and disperse. They have to disseminate that information, that valuable skills within the other subsidiaries, within the companies. Firm can increase growth by selling products, services developed at home internationally. Okay, they are core competencies. Core competencies enable the firm to reduce the cost of value creation or to create perceived value in such a way that premium pricing is possible. Important element that we had discussed in this point was the global web of value creation activities. That firms are because of the integration of the markets and free trade is available in several markets, firms have the choice to select such markets. In each production they can perform in most in markets where those operations will be performing most efficiently. And for instance, very famous example is, for instance, GM. They have their research and development unit in Germany, automobile research and development unit in Germany, and they have their production unit in Japan, and their assembly unit in South Korea, and marketing and advertising unit in UK. This is called the global web of value creation activity. They felt that in these markets are most efficient in producing those elements, those parts of the big production. Value chain are dispersed so that the location around the globe where perceived value is maximized or where the cost of value creation are minimized. Okay, but the problem with the global web is that there is a transportation cost involved, and might be considering that R&D, this sort of thing, where in which market the certain function is performed most efficiently, might be it's not possible to opt that market because of the transportation cost. Might be there are some trade barriers, and there are some political risk complicate this picture as well. Because of these ground realities of the markets, might be the global web of value creation is not entirely possible. Okay, next we had discussed about the experience effect. The experience curve refers to the systematic reduction in production cost that can be observed to occur over the life of the production. Experience curve says that with the passage of time, the cost of production will go down. Why? How? Because of the experience, especially the labor productivity will increase. The workers will learn how to produce with passage of time by doing things. And similarly, the management, they learn by managing, how to manage these international operations. Learning effects are cost saving that comes from the learning by doing. So when labor productivity increases, individuals learn the most efficient ways to perform the particular task, and management learns how to manage their new operation more efficiently. Next term was the economy of scale, refer to the reductions in unit cost achieved by producing a large number volume of the product. Source of economies include spreading fixed costs over the large volume, utilizing production facilities more intensively, increasing bargaining power with suppliers. These three elements contribute to the economy of scale. The first one, because of the economy of scale, they are spreading the fixed cost over the large volume. And the next one is that because they have the large number to produce, large quantity to produce, they can utilize their production facility at maximum. And the third one is, since they are producing a large number, they become in a position to bargain with the suppliers. Firms that compete in a global marketplace typically face two types of competitive pressure. One is cost reduction pressure, and the second one is locally responsive pressure. Cost reduction pressure mean pressure for cost reduction force the firms to lower unit cost, but pressure for local responsiveness mean firms have to produce their product according to the value, tradition, and expectation of the customers of local market. Pressure for local responsiveness arises from differences in customer taste and preferences, differences in traditional practices and infrastructure, differences in distribution channels, host government demands. Okay, local responsiveness, this sort of pressure arises because strong pressure for local responsiveness emerges when customer tastes and preferences differ significantly between the countries. Like we have discussed the example of pickup. In the north of USA, people prefer to have a regular car, while in the south or in the mid of the USA, like Arizona, New Mexico, or the south of USA, Texas, people prefer to use the pickup cars, pickup trucks. And automobile companies, they have to consider this sort of regional preferences and people's taste and preferences across the markets. Differences in traditional practices and infrastructure. Pressure for local responsibility emerge when there are differences in infrastructure. Like EU, they are using the car on the left right hand side of the road. They are the right hand side, and UK is opposite. And EU, they are using the 240 volt system, and in UK they use 110 volt system. Differences in distribution channels. A firm's marketing strategy need to be responsive to differences in distribution channel between countries. Detergents retain control 65% Germany, while in Italy it is 2%. Host government demands. Economic and political demands improved by host country. Government may necessitate a degree to a local responsibility. Drug stores should be dispersed to meet local demand. Threat of protectionism. To sell the rail cars in Germany, you must manufacture in Germany. I mean, for instance, there can be some demands from the local government that companies have to fulfill, while like for instance, in order to in order to sell the rail cars in the Germany, you have to produce those rail cars in Germany. Okay, there are four basic strategies to compete in the national environment: the global, standardization, localization, transnational, and international. Okay, global standardization is across the globe you are having the same product. Localization, you are purely focused on the local market, responsive to the local market. You are trying to adopt the taste, values, preferences of the local market. Transnational again mean across the continent you are operating, and you are trying to mix both the localization and internationalization. Strategic alliances refer to the cooperative agreement between the potential and the actual competitors. Range from formal joint venture to short-term contractual agreements. Number of strategic alliances has exploded in recent decades. We have seen a lot of strategic alliances in recent years. Strategic alliances are attractive because why we are observing a lot of strategic alliances across the globe. There are several reasons. The first one, facilitate entry in the foreign market. It helps firms to enter in the foreign market. Allows firms to share a fixed cost and risk of developing new products or processes. The first one is allow entry in the foreign market. The second one is when you operate and collaborate with the help of some other firm. Of course, you are sharing the fixed cost, you are sharing the risk. And both firms have their own competitive skills, and they can collaborate with each other. They can share those skills with each other, and help a firm establish technology standards further. If both firms are really influential within the industry, they can set some standards, and that rest of the companies have to follow. What are the different characteristics of a good partner, strategic partner? The first one is help the firms achieve its strategic goals and has the capabilities the firms lacks, and that its add values. Mean you are going to choose such a partner which have such skills which you lack. The skills, the capabilities that the firm lacks, you are going to choose a partner which have those skills and efficiencies in those skills. Shares the firm's vision. The vision should be the same, and the vision and targets should be the same for both firms, and will not exploit the alliance for its own need. Mean that firm should not behave in an opportunistic way when they enter in the strategic alliance. Alliance structure. Alliance structure should make it difficult for transfer of technology not meant to be transferred. Mean in strategic alliance there are some agreement, and according to the agreement certain technology, some sort of technology would be transferred, and certain sort of elements will not be transferred. Mean that strategic alliance is aimed to build for certain projects, but not might be related to the other project or other technology of that firm. So structure should be designed in such a way that which make difficult to transfer the technology which not meant to be transferred. Have contractual safeguard to guard against risk of opportunism by a partner. There should be some contractual agreements or some clauses which guard against the risk of opportunism by a partner. Okay, allow for skills and technology swap with equitable gains. Mean both firms should gain equally. Minimize the risk of opportunism by alliance partner. Okay, the manners in which alliance is managed, it requires interpersonal relationship with manager. Manager should be interactive with each other, and they should have a relationship with each other. Learning from alliance partners. Learning from alliance partner mean both partners within the strategic alliance should learn from each other, and building trust. If they don't have the trust with on each other, how they can run the strategic alliance. The next chapter that we had discussed was the entering foreign market. Entering in this chapter we had discussed that when firms are trying to enter in the foreign market, there are several costs associated with this entry. It includes transportation cost, trade barriers, political risk, economic risk, cost, and firm strategy. These all factors determine the the choice of entry modes. Choice of foreign markets will depend on their long-run profit potential. The favorable markets are politically stable. Okay, there are two types of markets: favorable and less favorable markets. Favorable markets which are politically stable, have free market system, have relatively low inflation rate, have low private sector debt. Typical examples are the developed countries. Less desirable markets are politically unstable, have mixed or command economies, have excessive level of borrowing. These are developed examples of developing economies. Markets are also more attractive when the product in question is not widely available and satisfies an unmet need. Imagine a scenario when that product is not available in the market, and satisfy their demands are not met yet. In that case, the companies have the huge opportunity to enter in that market. And the second element when we discuss about the entering in foreign market is the timing of entry. Timing of entry is it can be early entrant and the late entrant. Entry is early when the firm enters a foreign market before the other firms. Entry is late when the firm enters the market after firms have already established themselves in the market. Both modes, late entry or first entry, have their positive and negative aspects. The first entry is also called the first mover advantage. They are going to get the first mover advantage. They are first movers. The ability to preempt rivals by establishing a strong brand name. The ability to build up sale volume and write down the experience curve. The ability to create. Okay, because of the first mover advantage, you are going to strong, you can establish, because the other firms are now operating at the moment, and you can establish your brand name, and you can increase your sale volume, and you can, because of increasing sale volume and with passage of time, you can go down on the experience curve. As you know that with the passage of time, on the experience curve, with the passage of time, cost of production goes down and profitability goes up. And after choosing which markets you enter and timing of entry, firms need to decide on the scale of market entry. First you have decided that in which market you are going to enter, then the timing of the entry, then you are going to talk about and think about the scale, to what extent you intend to invest, degree of investment. Scale of market entry, entering of a market on significant scale is a major risk. You are going to see these risks and these market conditions, and then you are going to decide to what extent you are able to commit financially in that market. Firms that enter a market on a significant scale make a strategic commitment to a market. The decision has a long-term impact and difficult to reserve. If you have invested in a huge number in the beginning, it's a big decision, and a strategic commit and big decision, and it's really difficult to reverse. There are 6 different ways to enter the foreign market: exporting, turnkey contracts, licensing, franchising, joint ventures, and wholly owned subsidiaries. Each entry mode has its own advantages and disadvantages. Typical of exporting is a transportation cost, but disadvantage is transportation cost and trade barriers. And positive thing with the exporting is that ability to realize a location, least expensive. Turnkey projects, ability to return from the process technology skills in countries where FDI is restricted. And disadvantages: creating efficient competitor, lack of long-term market presence. Licensing, good development cost and risk, low level of development, low level of cost. And the disadvantage is lack of control and chances of risk of losing your technology. Franchising, low development cost and risk. Okay, disadvantages: lack of control over the and quality of the management. And joint venture. In joint venture, you can say that we have seen this thing: the partner we don't have, we choose the wrong partner, and there is a probability that the lack of control over technology and the stealing of technology, inability to realize location and experience economies. And the wholly owned subsidiaries, which includes the important thing is the positive thing with FDI in terms of wholly owned subsidiaries is your technology is protected, you have the full control in the management, and realize economy of scale, experience economies, and experience economies, and location experience economies. But the negative thing is high cost and high risk. When the firm's competitive advantage is based on priority, technological know-how, the firm should avoid licensing in joint venture arrangement unless it is believed its technological advantage is only transitory and it can be established its technology as a dominant design in the industry. When a firm's competitive advantage is based on management know-how, the risk of losing control over the management skill is not high. Firms can establish a wholly owned subsidiary in a country using a greenfield, building a subsidiary, using acquisition. They can build a wholly owned subsidiary by greenfield investment through the greenfield strategy or the acquisition. Acquisition are attractive because they are quick to execute. They enable firms to preempt the competitors. Acquisition may be less risky than greenfield ventures. Acquisition can fail when acquisition firm overpays the price because you couldn't judge the terms and condition. You couldn't judge the target firm, the value of the target firm. The second thing is attempts to realize synergies run in the might be when you acquired another firm, you couldn't work together, the management, the firms, there is not synergies run in the roadblocks and take much longer time to focus. It took longer time to have a synergy across the two companies, and is inadequate pre-examined screening because screening was not possible and you misjudge the value of the company. The main advantage of the greenfield venture is that it gives the firms a greater ability to build the kind of subsidiary company that it wants, greater control, protection of its technology, but it's more costly and risky. Again, in strategic merger acquisition, choice of strategic partner, structure and management. These are three important elements. Then we had discussed the concept of global marketing and product development. Globalization seems to be the exception rather than the rule in many consumer goods. The marketing mix is comprised of product attributes, distribution strategy, communication strategy and pricing strategy. Market segmentation is identifying distinct groups of consumers whose purchasing behavior differ from other important markets. Markets can be segmented by geographically, demographically, socio-cultural factors and psychological factors. Two key market segmentation issues. The difference between the countries in the structure of market segment may have to develop a unique market mix to appeal to a certain segment in the given. There is a problem with the market segmentation. The problem is when market segmentation in one country that you use for the one on the basis of the market segmentation not necessarily applies in the another market. The existence of segments that transcend national borders, when segments transcend national borders, a global strategy problem. On the other hand, when you have a market segmentation in one market, might be you can follow the same market segmentation in the another country. If you find out this sort of similarity across the market, you can adopt the global strategy. Culture, traditions, social structure, language, religion, education, for example, these are the attributes of the culture. And the level of economic development, this is the one element of the culture which shape the culture. And product and technical standards, national difference can force firms to customize the marketing mix. These are the different elements: culture, level of economic development, product and technological standards, distribution strategy. These are the different things which determine the marketing mix, the choice of marketing mix. Okay, there are four main differences in distribution channel. The first one is the retail concentration. It can be concentrated or fragment. Channel exclusivity. How difficult it is for the outsider to enter in the market. Channel quality. The expertise, the competency, skill of the established retailers in the nation. The effectiveness of the firm's international communication can be jeopardized by cultural barriers. Sometimes it happens that firms cannot communicate with the customers in the foreign market. It can be difficult to communicate messages across culture because, and the important thing is the barrier is the culture, the difference in culture. In certain culture, if you say one thing, it means something different. In another culture, it's a different thing. So source and country of origin effects and another element might be in one country the image of that product is also determined on the source of the country. Origin of that country. For instance, that if we are selling the products made in India products here in Pakistan, despite the quality, other things are really good and up to level, the price and quality are good, but might be people, of course, definitely get this perception of source effect. There will appear a source effect, and might be, and definitely that product will not succeed in the Pakistani market. Country of origin effects and noise effects. Country of origin effect, like we discussed, and the noise effect because of the noise effect because at the moment might be there is one product, several competitors are trying to give the message, different sort of messages for that product to a same customer, and that these different messages will nullify the effect of each other. The effectiveness of firms in international communication can be jeopardized by cultural barriers, like we discussed, sources of country effect, like we had discussed that thing, that the source effect, how source, and the noise levels. Firms have to choose between two types of communication strategy: the push strategy, which emphasizes personal selling, and the pull strategy, which emphasizes mass media advertising. These are the two types of communication strategy. The choice between strategies depends on these three factors: product type and consumer sophistication, channel length, and media availability. Okay, if we compare the push and pull strategy, we can see this push strategy is better for industry products and complex new products. New distribution channels are short. When distribution channels are short, when few print and electronic media is available. On the other hand, pull strategy is better when for consumer goods and products, when distribution channels are long, when sufficient print and electronic media is available, and price discrimination is available as well. Okay, then the next the concept is a pricing strategy, which has three aspects: the predatory pricing, multi-point pricing, and experience curve pricing. Predatory pricing means use profit gain in one market to support the aggressive pricing designed to drive competitor out. Firm earn the profit from the one market and use that profit in other market to cut down the prices, just to pull out the competitor from the market. And they can set the prices so low there in the other market that the competitor cannot beat, and they will go out from the market to drive out. Multi-point pricing. A firm's pricing strategy in one market may have an impact on the rival's pricing strategy in another market. Firm's pricing strategy in one market may have an impact on a rival pricing strategy in another market. Experience curve pricing. Price low worldwide in attempt to build global share volume as rapidly as possible, even it's the early stage of the products, maybe they are going to keep the prices low despite they are experiencing the losses. Firms' ability to set prices may be limited by anti-dumping regulations and competition policies. Why is new product development important? This is another question that we had discussed. Product innovation should be a strategic priority today. Competition is much about the technological innovation as anything else. The pace of technological change is faster than ever, and product life cycles are often very short. New innovations can make existing product obsolete very, very quickly. The rate of product development is greater in countries where more money is spent on the basic and applied research and demand is strong. Why cross-functional team is important? This is another question we had discussed, that importance of the cross-functional team. Team integration is facilitated by cross-functional product. Team should be led by heavyweight project manager. That team should include a member from all critical functional areas, and that team should have members located together, establish clear goals, and that team develop an effective conflict resolution process, because those people belong to the different department, different mindsets, and that's why they should have a resolution process and conflict resolution strategies. Building a global capabilities. To adequately commercialize new technology, firms need to integrate R&D and marketing. And to successfully commercialize the technology, firm may need to develop different version of different countries. Their R&D and marketing should be integrated to know what's the demand and what's the expectation in the market. And because once they have this, when the R&D department, they know about the demands within the market, then they can have the different versions of the product in the different countries, different markets. Okay, strategy, production, and logistics. Firms need to identify how production and logistics can be conducted internationally, lower the cost of value creation, and add the value by serving the customer needs. Productions and logistics, these are the two important. To improve the quality, firm can eliminate defective products from the supply chain and manufacturing process, and improve quality while reducing the cost. These are the two important things, and companies have adopted the Six Sigma and total quality management standards, and ISO 9000 in European countries. Global production, outsourcing and logistics. In this chapter we have discussed the three factors: country factors, technological factors and product factors. Country factors are factors which are macroeconomic factors, and technological factors are which are most important, relevant for the manufacturing: the level of fixed cost, the minimum efficient scale and flexibility of the technology. And then we had discussed about the firm using the flexible manufacturing factors. Manufacturing technologies can provide a wide variety of the end product at the unit cost that at a time can only be achieved through the mass production of the standardized product. Then we had discussed the mass customization, mean to produce the customized product at the mass level. Technological factors include the fixed concentrating production at a few choice location makes sense when fixed costs are substantial. Minimum, where the problem is when they have to choose between the centralized and decentralized production. They have to consider this point when the fixed costs are substantial, minimum efficient scale of production is high, and flexible manufacturing technology is available. These are the 3 points when the firm have to choose the centralized manufacturing plants. There are two basic strategies for locating manufacturing facilities. One is the concentrating and the centralized and decentralized. Then firm have to decide the make or buy decision, which are important in manufacturing firms. Either they can make by themselves or they can outsource that production from the other countries, from the other companies. Okay, the next concept that we had discussed was the global human resource management. Within the human resource management there were several aspects that it includes the processes determining human resource strategies, staffing and performance evaluation, management development, compensation, labor relations, and the firm need to ensure there is a fit between the human resource practices and strategies. Firms can help to reduce the cost of value creation and add value by better serving customer needs. Staffing policy is more concerned with the selection of employees who have skilled required to perform the particular job. And 3 main approaches for stating staffing policy: ethnocentric approach, polycentric and the geocentric approach. Ethnocentric approach fill key management position with parent country, national home country. Polycentric from the people hiring from the host country, and the geocentric from wherever they get the most suitable candidates. Expatriate failure is the premature return of the expatriate manager to the home country. There are 3 main reasons for the US expatriate failure: the inability of the expatriate spouse to adopt, the manager's inability to adjust, the family related issues, the manager's personal emotional maturity, and the manager's inability to cope with large overseas responsibilities. Then within this domain we had discussed the global mindset and different sort of importance of training, which focuses on preparing the manager for the specific job. And within the training we had learned the cultural training, language training and practical training. Cultural training fosters an appreciation of the host country's culture, and language training exclusive reliance on language to learn, to give them another language training for the language of that market. And the practical training give them training about to adjust to daily routine life in the new market. Okay, in this training also study shows that only 30% of the manager sent on 1 to 5 year expatriate assignment received training before their departures. Okay, evaluating expatriate can be really complex, typically because they are working somewhere else and evaluator are in the home country. This is to reduce the bias in performance appraisal of the expatriate manager. More weight should be given to the on-site manager appraisal than the off-site manager, and the former expatriate who has served in the same location should be involved in the process. two issues in the compensation, how it should be adjusted and how to pay the expatriate managers. And then we have discussed the components of compensation: basic salary, foreign service premium, various allowance, tax difference, and the benefits. Okay, the last chapter that we had studied was the ethics in business, international business, and we had discussed what is ethics, and when we apply these ethics, the guidelines of doing good or bad in business or business ethics, and the strategy, business strategy based on these ethics is called the business strategy. And the convention, okay, there are some convention, some rule. The USA, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, was outlawed the practices of paying bribes to foreign government officials in order to gain business. And similarly, there are some ethical dilemmas, which are the situation in which none of the very available alternatives seem ethically acceptable. And business ethics reflect the personal ethics of the managers, and it also depends on the organizational culture. There are several approaches to business ethics, including strawman approach, which includes Milton Friedman doctrine, cultural relativism, the righteous moralist, and the naive moralist. Then we have the proposition of utilitarian and the Kantian theory, right theorist, justice theorist, and these are the different theories. And the implication for the manager is that they in the promotion, hiring, and making the leaders, when they have how they are going to introduce and maintain and sustain the ethical environment within the business. And there are several code of what are the different steps firms can take to develop ethical standards within the ethical environment within the business, and they have to develop a code of ethics. And the 5-step process can help managers to think the ethical issues. And we had discussed these steps and how these firms can follow those steps, and the whole culture of the business can be on the ethical grounds. Thank you for today. Allah Hafiz.